The US government shutdown is heading for a second month, so could it stall the US economy? This is Macro Matters, and we're talking the shutdown. Historically, government shutdowns haven't bothered economists too much, but the length of this one has broken all precedents. This is the second month in a row when official jobs data hasn't come out, so it's hard to know what's happening in the labour market. Private data earlier this week showed a slight rebound in hiring, so while employers aren't adding many jobs, they also aren't laying off many people. But what if that signal is wrong? Mark Fleming is chief economist at First American. Mark, what do you think is happening under the hood of the US economy?
Well, you're absolutely right. Under normal circumstances, a short shutdown, a couple of weeks sort of a thing, there's really not a lot of impact on the US economy. But protracted shutdowns, and we are now in the longest one we've ever had, essentially is a modest demand shock. The government, we're basically not measuring the output of government workers. You also have the impact of outlays not being paid, sort of the SNAP programs and sort of welfare benefits not being paid. That's a significant one, and knock-on effects. And so you do begin to look, if it stays protracted, it is potentially increases unemployment and reduces GDP very modestly.
So what about the impact on the labour market? Of course, we have some private data, but that doesn't necessarily correlate in normal times with official payrolls, does it?
That's right. I mean, one of the primary private sources, ADP, was released this week, and so it is a point to look at. There are actually a number of other ones. There's business survey data. The Chicago Fed puts out an estimate of unemployment, which has actually remained stable for this month. So it's not that there is no data, but the benchmark government data is not there. And all of the private data sources are generally suggesting that there's no significant change in the sort of the softening trajectory of the labour market at the moment.
Well, Jerome Powell said on that lack of data that when you're driving in a fog, you should slow down. So how is the Fed looking at this? Is a December cut now off the table?
I suppose if you look at the betting markets, in the financial markets, there's almost 2/3 certain that there will be a rate cut. But your point is well taken. Lack of information creates increased uncertainty, and so maybe better to do nothing. Jerome Powell did make a very strong statement. Don't bet on anything with any certainty. Of course, they're looking at all these private sources as well. But the interesting thing, particularly with a shutdown, is it's a demand shock, right? So it sort of has long-term deflationary pressure because slower GDP growth. So you've got one thing benefiting your mandate of it helps sort of slow down inflation, but at the same time pushes unemployment modestly up. So they're being helped and hindered in a time when there's a lot of fog and you can't see well. So yes, it increases the likelihood that doing nothing is the safest course.
But what happens if when the shutdown ends,